All right, gentlemen, welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Welcome to episode 4 of Run It Back. I'm Menelik Fernandez, obviously. Big continued thank you to the Rising Coaches Network for giving me a little bit of an audience to explore some coaches talk and hear some other people's point of view. The premise of this show continues to be just basically taking a look at some teams that have played each other previously and imagining that you are on the coaching staff of one of the two teams and what you would be doing to prepare for a hypothetical rematch, assuming that everybody is healthy, of course. So this week we take a look at Winthrop versus Radford, who are in same conference. And let me give you just sort of the statistical background. We're taking a look at them from Winthrop's perspective. So they played twice and split their games this year. Both ended up 15-3 in conference, according to the NCAA's website. Winthrop finished 21-10 overall, and Radford finished 20-10 overall. Their first game was on January the 20th, which happened to be a win for Winthrop, which was a 61-56 win, and it was at Radford. And then the game 2 was February 10th at Winthrop, where Winthrop lost 81-77, which coincidentally was actually their first loss in 14 games. So I'll start with a poll, as I always do, with just the overall, hey guys, do you think Winthrop can beat Radford again? I think this one's going to be heavy on the yes side. I'm going to assume Jimmy's working out and he's the person who's missing out. So we're going to end
I
up.
voted. I voted.
Did you? All right. Well, we got 100% yes. So before I give you guys sort of the rundown on the games, give me your perspective. What do you guys think? What happened? If you didn't take a look at it, that's fine, no problem. But I'd like to hear you guys talk a bit and give me some of your philosophy. What happened in game number 2 specifically, probably. All right. Well, I'll guide it a little bit here, guys. We got a quiet crowd this morning. So in the first game, Winthrop shot 22% from 3 and still won the game, including only shooting 7% from the 3-point line. And then in the second game, so in my opinion, I think Winthrop should be dominating Radford overall. They're, in my opinion, a more talented team, and they match up a little bit better. But in the second game, Radford was up 27 in the second half at the largest point, and they only ended up winning the game by 4 points, despite being up 27. And then Winthrop were held to 37% in the first half and outscored by 24-8 in the paint. DJ Burns, who was their starting big guy, only ended up playing 7 minutes in that game. That second game, I uploaded it for guys. It didn't have any sound, so I was wondering if anybody actually knew why that was. And I suspect I know why it was. I think it was because he couldn't hedge on their two guards. So I think he got the yank, but I don't know. Maybe there was something like an injury or whatever. I couldn't find it in the recap. And then Radford stopped a 14-game win streak, like I said. They had 42 points in the paint compared to only 30 in game 1. And DJ Burns goes from 19 points to only scoring 2 points in the second game because he only plays the 7 minutes. And let me see what else is from the box score. Winthrop made 7 threes in the last 9 minutes. So does anybody, hi Munchkin, how are you? Anybody have any sort of theory as to what happened second game? What's going on there?
Well, I thought Winthrop was terrible on defense in the second game. They gave up like 12 layups in the first half. It's tough to win games when you do that.
I would agree with you 100%. So I actually thought that they were getting beat on twos in these games, and I thought a lot of them were straight line drives. I got a little bit of video on a couple of players that I'll share with you guys in a second. But I mean, it was like in the first game, Radford shot 5 of 19 from 3. And in this, in the first game, other way around, they were 6 of 29. In the second game, they were 5 of 19. So if you prepare for a pretty bad 3-point shooting team overall, what sort of game plan are you bringing in to make the change there? Like, are you guys crowding the paint more? Are you perhaps incorporating some zone, which they didn't do at all? Or like, what's your theory on that?
For me, we have our system anyway, so we wouldn't play zone. We would stay in our man probably, but we would really pack in the gaps and try to, make sure all catches were going away from the basket, like not getting back cut, not over closing out on bad shooters, which I think Winthrop just got caught in some bad rotations. Like there was no reason for them to not have guys on the midline, especially off the 2 kids, the 4 especially that's really can't shoot. Like they'd be caught hugging them outside and give up straight line drives with no help at all. And they already don't have a shot blocker, so.
Just because we're kind of on this, let me give you a little bit of something to talk about here. Which Radford players hurt Winthrop the most is just what this poll is the gentleman they're looking at. I have 2 in particular, and I want to show a little bit of video on them. I'm wondering if anybody saw anybody in there that maybe did something different that I didn't see, but
how can I pick 2?
Pardon me?
It says choose at most 2. Can you do that, or can you only pick 1?
I think you can do 2. It's supposed to be a multiple choice one, and is it not set up that way?
Every time I try to click on the second one, it's okay. I'm picking Travis Fields in the poll, but Carlick Jones would have been my other one.
There you go. Yeah, so those would be my 2. And I want to ask you gentlemen some questions based on some film here. Basically, if we're on the turnaround, I think these 2 guys crushed them. And what do you do? How are you stopping them? Here's Travis Fields. Let's take a look. Size-wise, everybody good with that, or should I blow it up full screen?
That's good.
That's good. So just so we know, the big that I was talking about on Winthrop is this guy, and they were trying to hedge all over. So you can get an idea first clip, in my opinion, why he ended up off the floor. He also, there's 2 or 3 other clips where he just gets split all over the time, but I don't think he has the ability to be able to actually hedge this guy up the floor. But in terms of this guard, this is all straight line drives. It's all to the bucket, with the exception of this one. And we'll run one more for you. So before I get into Carlick, what are you doing with Travis? So how do you handle this guy? I mean, he's not a big guy overall. I think he's listed as being 5'10". Let me pull him up real quick. He's 5'10" or 6 feet. He's one of the 2. He's 6'1" is what they have him listed as. 6'1", 180, obviously a quick guard, right hand dominant, and can break guys down off the dribble. So what are you doing? What corrections are you making?
It's tough because, like, as fast as he is, you can't go under because he shoots 42% from 3 for the year. So, like, you have to go over. I would like to see their hedge. If they're going to hard hedge, it's got to be better. Like, the big can't open his hip and just let him dance wherever he wants. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him play drop coverage against the ball screen with him.
I know Jimmy's in here. I was going to gear it that way. So what are the advantages of going drop and over? What kind of shot do you invite? And do you think over? So the thing is for me is that obviously it's the way that I want to steer it with this particular guy, but with a player like that, if you're weakening him and dropping him, or if you're just, into him and allowing him to go over, you're inviting that 15 to 18 foot mid-range. The team doesn't shoot particularly well from 3-point overall. So I think it's kind of the best game plan. But Winthrop won on twos.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Radford won on twos. So overall, would you stay with that coverage throughout the course of a game? Would you accept whatever happens? Kind of like, is that the best possible way you can guard a small guard that can get into the paint at will?
Yeah. I thought the twos that they won on weren't those 15 to 18 foot pull-ups that you were talking about. Like, I thought they made a lot of shots at the rim, 2 to 7 feet, where they were floaters or whatever, runners going to the basket. Like, I think you take some of that away if you play drop. You know what I mean? Yeah, you invite that 15 to 18 foot with a rear contest, but you keep your big in a better spot to protect the basket. And I think you allow your guard to know exactly where they're sending the ball. And I think Fields is at his best when he comes off that screen and then he can pull it back with a pause dribble and flip the defender's feet and then attack his other, he just gets down low so well. So if you can eliminate that and still have your big in the paint where you can guard, I think that's probably the best game plan.
So one of the keys I had to Winthrop winning the next game is playing their big again, but he gets left in space often. Hips are obviously open a lot, getting split on that high hedge. If we're going to stick with the high hedge, can I play that guy some more? Or they took him off the floor. Pretty much, I think what happened was the coach is just looking at him getting crushed on that ball screen. But they win the game when he stays in the game, and they don't win the game when he doesn't. So what's the solution? What do? Do I just go to drop coverage and live with it, like I said? Or do I maybe have him be at the line of the screen instead of being high hedging? So it's like a flat and over. Good morning, Dennis. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I see Greg, Alex, and Ahmed in here as well. Nice to see you, gentlemen. We somehow have ended up to ball screen coverage, as we always do. Let me show you the second quick guard. So Karlik is basically their main contributor, but it's similar type deal. I think he dribbles 30 times on this one, just as an FYI. I was watching this one. I was like, what is going on? Complete other side of the floor. Where am I right now?
The first one's a tough finish. That one was terrible defense, though.
So what do you do? How do you guard these two gentlemen? Younger guys, let me hear your opinion. You're in a coach's meeting, coach is asking. I've got something that I want to do. Would you question or would you just go along with it? What do you do? How do you guard a better ball handler that has the ball on the string, that can break your perimeter guys down? Like, if I'm Winthrop's coach, I don't want to take the certain players off the floor that I have on the floor because we're not particularly deep and there are more talented scorers. So what kind of concept can you come up with to change the scenario?
Were all his finishes at the rim?
No, there's one or two that are 15 to 18 feet in there, but both of those guards, so you missed the film on the first one, but both of them are same thing. Straight line drives, like most are on ball screens, but some are just like complete breakdowns, 15, 20 dribble type deal. Between the legs, he's out on the playground having fun, just crushing the guy on the perimeter all the way to the basket.
From my perspective, and again, I didn't see the first part or whoever, but anytime we play against a ball-dominant player who is only going to help his team by having the ball on his hand, I'm blitzing him. Now I'm blitzing him. and I'm going to get the ball out of his hand and make the other guys play. Now, again, I don't know the personnel, right? I don't know how solid the big is in the high post. I don't and the decision making of the big man because most of the time that's where the exit pass is going to go to in my defense at least. So again, from not watching a lot of film, and I'm just trying to get used to what you guys are trying to do here. Ball dominant guard needs the ball in his hand. I'm blitzing him and getting the ball out of his hand and making the other guys make plays.
So just for clarification, just terminology-wise, blitzing, you mean a hard high hedge or do you mean a double?
It's a double.
Yep.
Man, that's something too.
Yeah.
So, like, they both shoot 60% at the rim. They both shoot 40% off the dribble outside from the rim. So immediately I'm thinking, bigs are back protecting the rim. So that's first and foremost. So whether we go over or under is a different story. Travis Fields, 95% of his threes were catch and shoot. So I'm going under on him because obviously he doesn't want to catch and shoot. I mean, he's not going to take them off the bounce, and then we can mix it up on Carlick a little bit. But I'm going under on Fields, keep it our big back. The other guy, we can mix it up, go over under. But 60% to 40% is a lot different from at the rim and mid range. So
I would agree. So Jimmy, just to your point, like short turnaround, we've played this team twice. We only really seem to practice one ball screen coverage in that week on the short turnaround in terms of mixing it up. Are you working on footwork? Are you working on the hands for getting over and under? Are you spending 10 minutes in practice going just like on the teaching points of over versus under? Are you practicing calls so that you can communicate it? What's your viewpoint in terms of how you're going to do that?
I think you put the onus on the big being the most vocal guy on the court and kind of directing where it's going to be. And then like on your clips, you had like the guards rejecting the ball screens.
Yeah.
And then he also split it, right? So, the guards can't get rejected, first of all, and the bigs need to communicate it. So neither one of those, if you're kind of on the same page with communication, and being up at the line obviously didn't work. Like he just split it. So
no, he pulled his pants down on this split twice in a row. So it was just like, okay.
So, I mean, I think you just need to, I think you got to tell your guys, like, hey, we're not going to get beat at the fucking rim. Like these dudes are just getting downhill on us. Like, if we can force them along, if they make some of them, like tip your hat. But, at the end of the day, like you're going to play the numbers.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the real benefit to it, which is kind of where I wanted to steer it, was you get to keep your big on the floor, DJ Burns Jr. So, I mean, in my opinion, like they play inside out through him. He's a decent passer, but he can also score a lefty on the block. He's got a lot of body weight on the guys that Radford can produce to be able to guard him. So, like, I think he needs to be in there to be able to win. And a large part of the momentum that Radford was able to build in the second game came while he was off the floor, right? So, like, they lose out a little bit on the rebounding that he provides, but they lose out a lot more on the things that don't go right on the box sheet of, his presence being there to alter and block shots, but also his ability to defensively rebound, his ability to keep other guys off the offensive rebounds because Radford's a pretty good offensive rebounding team, et cetera. So he can just like face guard guys and keep them out. Somebody else is rebounding the ball type deal. I just really think you need him on the floor. And I think the only way to keep him on the floor is to go to some sort of ball screen coverage where he's back. He's dropped away.
Something happened in that game. I just found an article about DJ Burns and Travis Fields getting into some kind of fight type thing and technicals, and Radford's coach actually got suspended for a game after the game. So I don't know if that's why he didn't play.
Maybe. So like I said, the second game, it didn't have sound from the Synergy one, so I couldn't hear like any sort of commentator on it, but then he was just kind of gone, and you don't really see like a massive skirmish breakout type deal. So
I thought it was weird, like Winthrop switched a couple of times too, with especially like 1-4, and their 4 had no chance of keeping these dudes in front. Like, I don't know why they switched. I mean, I guess it's probably their philosophy, but like it felt like any time that Carlin wanted to get to the basket, they set a ball screen with the 4 and Winthrop would switch, and he'd just get right immediately downhill.
So I got a question. So if you guys see this, again, pretending that we're on Winthrop's side. So Radford's not particularly tall. Their median height is like 6'3". They have the two guards that are small and quick, but it seemed like in the second game, they made a conscious effort to try and get bigger. So they put in, I don't know if it's Eek or Eke. I'm sorry if he ever ends up watching. They put him in and Jonkin in to get a little bit more height. And I'm just wondering, like, if you're Winthrop and you see a team going away from their traditional starters to try and get a little bit bigger, are you kind of licking your lips at that, saying, hey, this is great because they're going a little bit deeper, or are you just kind of playing your regular game plan? Because for me, I want to put those guys, like, I want to test them right away. I want to put them in ball screen coverages. I want to go at them in mismatches. I want to get some switching off ball so that I can try and capitalize on it. What's your theory on it, guys?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell if like they were just trying to play a bigger lineup or if they were playing other guys early because they were up 27. You know what I mean? To get guys. So I'm with you. Like, I think like the deeper you get into the bench, obviously you want your starters to have a chance to attack those guys, but like they still, the dudes that played double digit minutes at least were still kind of their core 9 guys. So I don't like, you know, I don't know, like, if they went a little bit bigger because Winthrop's big was out and they thought maybe they could hurt him inside on the glass or something, but I'm not sure.
Fair enough. Interesting. Sorry?
They did end up out-rebounding them, though.
They did. I want to share a screen. I want to talk end of game real quick. So just a little context. Like I said, Winthrop down 27 at the most in the second game. They're on a 14-game win streak. The game is on their home court, and they battle their way back. They hit 7 threes in the last 9 minutes. They show grit. They're going at them every time. They're getting defensive stops. So then they get a big 3 from, I believe his name's Russell Jones. Hang on one second. Where are we? Russell Jones Jr. hits a big 3, and then they come back down and they get a dribble through layup or whatever. So they're down 2 with under a minute left, and then they get a defensive stop on their side. And let's take a look at this right here. So we'll call it game time. And we'll just stop it right here, give you guys a little bit of context. So there's 1 shot clock. They're down 2. The fouls, both teams are in double bonus. They're both at 10. And coaches, are you calling a timeout? Are you letting them play? Are you encouraging them to play for 1 possession? Or is this the right choice in your mind?
Yeah, you know what? That's been a discussion that we've had for a while now. I don't want to call the timeout. I want to let them play and create. I don't want the defense to set up.
Ahmed, you're with me. You're up here in FIBA, man. You can't call the timeout. They can't. Right on the court.
You know
right?
it. Like,
we gotta play.
Hey, we gotta play. That's right. So you know what? Again, without knowing the numbers and how good they are in transition, you know, and what kind of style they play, and etc. You know, we're gonna go, and we're gonna trust our ball handlers to make the best decision for our team, and we gotta go score. We don't want the defense to set up. That's just my opinion.
So would you go early in the shot clock as well, gentlemen? So, like, I mean, there's 1 shot clock left in the game if you really wanted to stretch it out, right? So we're 24 second up here, but you guys are 30, obviously. So there's 1 left. And then a little bit of context. Russell, who just hit the 3, he does not shoot tremendously well around the rim. He's a 33% shooter, I think it was, from 2. And he is 5'9" is what he's listed as. I don't think he's that. And the help defender in this situation is 6'7". and he gets his shot blocked. So 33 obviously doesn't tee up, doesn't get to the center of the key. They don't look to the drift, etc. This is basically the game, in my opinion. Does anybody have a different point of view, something they would do differently there?
I would probably call like my philosophy like on is if like we don't have like any momentum, like kind of how like the guard ended up having to like slow down. We had no momentum. We just passed it and you kind of just drove. I would have called a timeout there because it wasn't like we're still constantly like it wasn't just like all going like at once. It was like a quick boom, 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 boom. We get a shot. It was kind of like you slowed down, kicked it. That's why I would call a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I would have done in that situation. But it kind of just goes more on feel, like how I feel like in the moment.
Yeah.
So my question to you, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that if you don't have an advantage, so like say after the defensive rebound, if they couldn't pitch it ahead or just weren't able to create any advantage off of the initial break, then I like the idea of calling a timeout, especially if you possibly subbed offense, defense, the defensive possession earlier.
Okay, so my question to you guys is this is a the date is February 2nd, is that correct? No,
This
Yep.
game happened
February 10th.
February 10th.
Right, February 10th. So we're February 10th. My team is I'm Winthrop. I'm 18-8 at this time. Radford's 15-9. I don't have the stats in front of me. Are you using this as a teaching moment? Because come tournament time, 15 seconds, you don't have any timeouts. What are you doing in that situation, right? So you don't have a timeout. You're down 2, you're down 3, you're down 1. So again, for me, my coaching philosophy is I want to utilize the season to try and benefit the postseason in some way, shape, or form. If this game is not a deciding game, for example, I'm letting it run and I'm going. And I want to see how my team reacts because the next day when we're doing film or, that's going to be a good teaching point. Okay, well, you know what, Russell? You drove, 6'9" guy, you're going up like that. Okay, boom, 2-foot jump stop, hit the kick, get a better shot, right? One more pass. The other guys, again, if you look at it, it was very stagnant. It was like pass and just go, right? So there's got to be a teaching moment that comes into play here, and I think this is a perfect teaching opportunity.
I think the hard part about that is it's a one bid league, so you don't make the tournament. You know what I mean? So
and they're tied, right? So they both end up.
I think for me 28 on the clock, we get the rebound and I call timeout just because now I have every single set in my entire playbook that I think I can pick as a coach and try to dictate what shot we get. I still go early, but I think looking at the film, I call timeout. I'm probably not going to get, a layup at the rim. The defender made a good play and blocked it, but what are you going to draw up as a coach that you get a layup at the rim like that? He's got to make that layup. He shoots it with his inside hand, which is why it gets blocked. I think he had a guy open on the wing. He made a good play. They got a great shot in transition with 19 on the clock, but I think for me, I'm with you, Ahmad. I don't call timeout under 12 seconds. I let them go, but I think with that much time, you have the opportunity to call timeout because you can literally run anything you got in your entire playbook.
Would you call the timeout as soon as you got the defensive rebound, or would you let them push it to see if they could create an advantage and then call the timeout once they got into the half court?
I personally would call it right away, but just because I think for me at least, sometimes it's easier to inbound it when you got the full court to work with. Maybe you get an advantage coming out if they try to. Most teams with the lead aren't going to press up. They're going to play back up around half court. So, either way, you probably get in and get right into whatever you want to run.
I
I'm
remember.
just letting you know I'm pressing. If you,
Yeah, you might. But I think you run the risk if you press and we get by you. Now we got an uncontested layup to tie the game. Like I think a lot of teams in American college basketball, at least, don't press with the lead late in the
Right.
game. Some do, but not all.
Is there anybody in that scenario who's holding for one? Or is everybody going early on the clock type deal, trying to see if they can extend the game, trying to get more? Because, so like I've got a friend up here that would hold for one because his theory is ultimately you're ending the game playing to try and tie or win in either case. So he'd rather try and do it on the last possession. So
Yeah, it's different. Like I would go early down 2. If I was down 1, I would wrestle with it to maybe go last shot because then either shot you take, you're winning. But I think down, you got to give yourself a chance to. Yeah, ultimately it comes back to you as a coach. Where are you more comfortable ending the game, on offense or defense? Like if you're an offensive coach, you probably want to play for the last shot. If your team is defensive minded, most coaches would want to end on defense and try to get a stop to win the game. But I mean, I think when you're down, you kind of have to go. Down 1, in my opinion, at least, is a little bit different scenario because no matter what shot you take, you're going to win if you make it. I think down 2, even if you score early, like you might score early, they miss on the other end, and you get a chance to come back down again. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So you guys are gonna think I'm crazy, but I was actually just watching. Again, during this pandemic, we've all done a ton of clinics and webinars. So I forget which coach was talking about this. You have to forgive me. I think it's a San Francisco coach. I forget who. Anyways, what they would do in this situation, 28 seconds, you're down 2. You're going to go for a tie right off the bat. Now, again, the game has become a possessions game, right, with the analytics, etc. So we want the extra possession. So we're going to go right away. No timeout, push the ball, go try and get a score, right? Let's say Winthrop scores in that situation. How much time is left, Menelik? How much?
It's 28.9 when they get the ball. If they score, they'd probably be in the vicinity of like 18 seconds left with Radford having the ball.
Perfect. 18 seconds. You know what he said they would do in that situation, and they've done it?
They foul, right?
They would foul.
Yeah.
They would foul right away. So you tie the game. You don't go back and play defense because now you lose the possession, right? So you actually, and it's crazy when I was listening to this guy and he was explaining it, you actually gain the extra possession and that favors you because now you put them on the free throw line. I don't know how good Radford is at the line as a team or who it may be, but you're telling your guys we're fouling because we want the extra possession, right? I don't know.
They're actually one of the worst in the league.
They are, right? So they're
54.5%.
Like I know with Todd, I know Todd Golden, and I know the analytics guys.
That's it, Todd. That's right. That's right. There you go.
So they all come from the Columbia tree. Like the double bonus plays into it, but I understand. Like European teams foul when they're up 2 and the other team has the ball.
Correct.
So the last possession too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like risk in that though, like especially in the FIBA game, because like in the FIBA game, refs will hit you with a U, right? So,
correct.
Right. So it's like if you get an unsportsmanlike, that's 2 in the ball.
Correct.
So we don't. They're not lenient in terms of they'll let you get away with hitting him and be like, oh, that's the flow of the game. They'll be like, you intentionally fouled, so he's got 2 in the ball, and then I mean the game's over at that point.
Game's over. We can't do it up here. Yeah.
The analytics side of it, but like if you do that and you lose at a big time school, you take a beating in the press. Like
for sure.
Yeah. Like imagine if freaking Vogel tries out in the finals with the Lakers and they lose, like he gets fired. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the next day he's out. Like he doesn't even go back to the office. But the thing is that my philosophy on that would be, all right, if you score on this layup and you tie the game, so to speak, right? And then you foul them, you're giving them the opportunity to hit 2.
You're in the same situation.
You're in the exact same situation. So if that's your principle,
might as well
and you're in the last shot clock, why not just dribble out that shot clock to try and get something at the end of the game anyways? I think ultimately you end up in the same position where you're down 2 and you're playing for that last shot. And I understand the counter argument. Well, if you dribble down the shot clock or whatever, then you're playing, the defense is set, they're at a standstill, they can get an idea of what you're doing, etc. But at the same time, it's like, I don't really see the difference from the analytical standpoint there. Like maybe there's
analytics is like there's at least like a, even if they're a 75% shooter, there's at least a 25% chance that you're only going to be down 1 instead of down 2.
Correct.
Say that again. Sorry, that math went way over my head.
Well, if you tie it up, you foul a free throw shooter that's a 75% shooter. Prior to that, you were 100% sure to be down 2 to take the last shot. Now you have at least a 25% chance to only be down 1.
Exactly.
Last possession.
In Menelik, like to put it in, like talking like if the 1-on-1 situation too, and like I know he talks a lot about that. So you're banking on if they miss the first one, like it's a tie game, you got the ball. Yeah. So 75% is 1.5 points per possession. So you get and I get a shot that's better than 1.5 per, you know what I mean? But also there's a third of a chance that, he blows the first shot. And can we just get any type of point? So that's what you're weighing.
Exactly. Exactly. See, I wouldn't do that at the end of a game. See, I would 100%. I would do something like that right before the half because I want to get that extra possession in the first half, right? So again, it's all numbers game, but it actually works sometimes. Like, and that's you got to live with it.
That's when I heard Todd talking about it. That was when he talked about doing it, right? In the first half. Yeah.
Menelik, just to go back a little bit, like philosophically, I'm calling a timeout, like immediately, like kind of what Brant said. To me, like I want to put my guys in position to win the game. So I'm calling timeout and I'm telling like, this is what we're going to run. But the most important part is like players are not going to know in the moment. When that shot goes up, all 5 got to crash. Like they're going to go back to your principle. So if you don't crash anyways, they're not going to crash unless you tell them in the moment. Because the moment's really big and you kind of go back to your comfort zone. So you got to tell them, hey, Joe shoots the ball. All 4 other guys going to the fucking glass. We don't get it. We're fouling immediately. That way, as much so you tell them the situation, then you could tell them like, they go to the free throw line. This is what we're running after too. It's not even just about the play. It's about the remaining part of the game. If you have no other timeouts, you got to, these guys are going to, you don't want to go down and smoke a layup. They make 2 free throws. It's a 4-point game. You didn't call timeout. Now you don't got a 4-point play. So now you're fucked.
What's kind of interesting about it is like to your point, after that missed layup, they come down, they're in a fast break situation. So then Winthrop fouls and then you end up with this, right? So Radford makes both free throws and then next play, they basically get it on the baseline, timeout type situation, 11.3 left on the clock. And ultimately, like he smokes the screen. And ultimately, they get a pretty good look at this.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, why not have just done that at 26, 27 seconds? They also got the offensive rebound. And I personally would have dropped it off here and taken the 2 and tried to play with 1. I know it's not the NBA, et cetera, or FIBA where the ball advances, but I would have tried to play from 2 down, see if maybe I can extend the game a little bit. But they actually got the rebound and got another look a half a second late. So if it was later on in the game, I mean, I would have, if it was earlier on in the game, I would have been better off, in my opinion, if I'm Winthrop's head coach in that scenario, calling the timeout, going through it, et cetera, from there. So my question to that, though, just sort of following up and not to beat a dead horse, but end of game scenarios, would you, like Ahmed was saying, it's a teaching point for sure. You would spend some time after the second game going through it or whatever, but would you be practicing this in practice? Would you be spending some time putting whatever on the clock, trying to emulate the situation, go through different stuff? And if you do you let your guys take the lead or do you try to teach them all the way through and analyze it? How's that work?
We do that already. We do that throughout the course of the season, do different scenarios, end game, that type of stuff. And the first time we do it, generally what I do is I have the assistant coaches take a team and we run through it. And then after they do it, then I kind of bring them together and talk through the scenario, get them speaking and thinking, asking them questions, getting them think the game a little bit. And then, I give them what I think would have been the best scenario. Then we'll try running through it again because, it's never the same. It's never the same, no matter how many times you run through it. So it's about principles and concepts. And we even talk about, why wouldn't we want to call timeout and all that kind of stuff, depending on the scenario that we're working on for that day. We have scenario cards, time and score and who's got possession, what just happened, all that kind of stuff. That what you've just seen would fall into some of those scenarios. So that's how we would work on it.
So Dennis, from your scenario cards, are you getting them from a book, or are you creating them from situations that you've seen in all of your experience type deal?
Some I tried to create myself, but then I was given a massive stack, and they got all types of situations, including coach just got a technical foul and all, so, I've stolen them from different guys. Why try and go through and recreate all the same stuff that I was trying to create anyway? So they already had them. So I laminated the things and made it a day, and I got on a little ring and I just flipped the card, or I'll go through and seek out something I think might be important for us at that time of the season, and we'll work on that type of a scenario for a little bit in practice. So we try to do that type of thing. The players don't always see the cards. I have them in my office, and then I'll come out and say, hey, we're going to work on the scenario. So I'm not necessarily pulling the card out in front of them and saying, hey, here's the scenario of the day kind of a thing. But, that kind of stuff.
Makes sense.
I really like that, Dennis. That's really, really a clever idea to use. The other thing that I really, really like what you said was the why. I think it's so important for our guys to understand why. Why do we do things in a certain situation? So when that does happen, 28 seconds left, we get the rebound. They're not looking at me, coach. Are we calling a timeout or not? They know my philosophy. We're not calling a timeout. We're gonna go play. You're gonna run our stuff. We have our end of game situations already in the back of our minds. We know what we want to create. We know what we want to run. And let's just go with it. And Dennis, that's a really, really great idea. I'm stealing that, by the way.
What's interesting is some of the things that are in there, that we've put in are things that you'd be like, why are you practicing that? But literally I'll put 4 seconds on the clock and tell the kid to shoot the layup. And the kid that shoots the layup puts them down too. And I said, as soon as he scores a layup, there's 4 seconds on the clock. Let's play. Well, what's some kid going to do? Some kid's going to grab it and throw in bounds, play, something's going to happen. I'm like, okay, so we end. Okay, so why did you do what you did? Well, there was 4 seconds. We're up 2. We got to get rid of those 4 seconds. I go, well, what happens in our game when you score? It's not college, it's not pro. What happens? What do you mean, coach? Well, did the clock stop? Oh, no. Well, why the heck did you throw the ball in bounds? Oh, I didn't, And it's something we all know. But, at my level, not every kid, it clicks in their brain right away. So,
Awesome.
if there's some different things that we throw in there that they're like, oh, gosh, yeah, you're right, coach. We shouldn't have done that. Or we'll throw in the one where we score, and now you're down 2, no timeouts. And, and there's, like a second left on the clock or whatever. Why didn't you call timeout? Well, we don't have any timeouts. Well, if you don't call timeout, the clock don't stop. Game keeps going. So yeah, but it'll be a technical foul. But the game's still going. If you don't call timeout, game's over. Oh, so it's okay for us to call it? Yeah, why would it? But I didn't think we wanted a technical foul. Well, did you want to lose? Well, no. Well, that's the only way you got a chance at winning. The odds are against us, but it's your only chance. So, it gives us a chance to talk through some of those silly things as well, not just these scenarios. That's what I like about it.
Well,
awesome.
sorry, Ahmed, the thing that I find really interesting about that, so like I've coached high school, college, and university, and rep. So like rep would be AAU travel, and like we have a league up here called CYBL or whatever. And like the thing that I find really interesting is knowing the rule differences. So like I was joking around with Ahmed or whatever, like we can't call a timeout in that situation, and it's not one shot clock left, right? And then in the last shot there, we're not taking the ball on the back baseline, we're going front court, right? So like they're all little things that you kind of have to know. And like to something that you just said too, Dennis, like in high school when I coached high school, the exact rule you're talking about, like we score, the other team, let's say, has a 1-point lead and there's 4 or 3 seconds left. I'm teaching my guys, if we don't have a delay of game warning, to get the ball out of the bucket or to step over the line and slap it out of his hands. And the ref will blow his whistle. The ref will stop the clock and we'll get a delay of game warning, but it's a dead ball on the side. And it's like those little things that you have to, I mean, obviously you pick them up from things like this, talking to other coaches or from being in the moment and actually doing it type deal or whatever. But like, it amazes me how many people don't read case scenarios or watch things like this about their particular rules, right? Like in Euro Concepts this week, I forget the presenter's name right now. I'm
David
sorry,
Gale.
Enrico. Sorry?
Was it David Gale?
It was David Gale. So David Gale was in Toronto with the Raptors 905, obviously, but now is winning coach of the year over there and dominating his league, et cetera. One of the first things that he did in his presentation was put up like a slide that shows differences between coaching at the G League level versus coaching FIBA basketball, right? Like, and we're not just talking about the intricacies of like a slightly smaller court or a slightly different 3-point line, that kind of stuff or whatever. Like actually the differences, like, hey, you can fall with the ball and it's not a travel, or you can't call a timeout while you're in play. So your guys have to know to go. Like on a play like that, they have to know what they're doing, which means when you're practicing, you have to put in some end of game scenarios exactly like that. So having a case card that you practice or whatever is great. And like some advice for any younger coaches who are watching or anybody who's just obviously always trying to get better is like write down scenarios, go through those things at end of games and like really take a look at everything that's going on. Like when I talk to a coach like Brandt or a coach like Jimmy, I know that if I show a video like that, right, and it's not limited to them, obviously there's lots on this call or whatever, just for example's sake, like when I talk to them, I know if I show a video like that, they're taking in those intricacies. They're looking at how many fouls or who's in the bonus and like what that means, what the possession arrow is, all those little things that you just have to study. And it's like, I can't believe how many coaches I know think that it's all just the ability of your players and not really understanding where you're at in those scenarios, so to speak.
Man, like just to kind of piggyback on that, like that's why I have such respect for Bill Belichick. Like as much shit as he gets for bending the rules, the dude knows the rule book. Like
Right.
He'll come out with a fucking awful looking formation because the defense doesn't know what it looks like and who's eligible. It's legal. It just hasn't been done. And so the other coach is like, that's illegal, da-da-da. And the play goes on, you know, they score a touchdown. And the other team's like, you can't do that. And he's like, well, I know the rules. Yes, you can. And I think even for us at our level, like the G League, if you guys don't know, we change rules every year.
Yeah.
So like it's
that first free throw one got me this year. Jesus,
yeah.
1 for 2. I was like, what is going on? Why look?
So do you guys in FIBA, and I'm sorry if I don't know the rule, but if you advance the ball, does the shot clock change?
It does, yes.
Yeah. So it changed for us 2 years ago. We're down 3, right? We score a layup. There's 22 seconds left in the game. So we're down 1. They call a timeout, and they ask the other coach, he's a first-time head coach, do you want to advance the ball? He says yes. We're like, what an idiot. Now there's only 14 on the clock.
We got the last possession now.
So we get a stop, we score, we win. Like, you know, the rules are so different everywhere, but, you know, first-time head coach, not thinking like, yeah, let's advance the ball, like we can run the clock out. It's just amazing the difference everywhere.
So that rule, when they implemented that up here, I actually have a friend. He coaches a big name school in Toronto. I'm not going to name names, but he's a buddy of mine. And they were down 1, I believe it was, and they did the same thing where they advanced the ball, and then they didn't hit the shot, but because they advanced the ball, there was 14 on the shot clock, and the other team ended up getting the ball back and being able to kill off the game. And I was just like, what? Why did you do that? Like, what were you doing? In fact, I actually think I have the scenario wrong. I think they were up one, and the other team got the ball back and got a lost shot and hit it. And I was just like, why? You could have just killed the game if you took it in the back court.
Yep.
Right? So it's like absolutely having to know the intricacies of your league, your game. And I think that's the real value of something like this. So it's like, sorry, jump in if you had, Dennis. I saw you on
Hey, I
mute.
was just going to say, you're talking about the end game scenarios, and for these young guys, if they haven't put stuff together, the best way to do that is to watch your games and start at the 3-minute mark. 3 minutes left. And then from there, you could have that. There's 3 minutes left on the clock. Here's the score, whatever. But then, just watch your games. And then the close ones, break them down. This one's a 3-minute. This is a 2-minute. Here's a 1 minute. Here's 30 seconds. Your games will give you all the scenarios to work on if you haven't done anything like that.
Yeah,
Well, one of our two, sorry, Brian, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, don't be afraid when you're watching a game on TV to
Yeah.
especially like you see like a last minute where like, dang, that was a crazy sequence. Like, don't write down exactly what happened maybe, but just write down the game and the date so you can go back and check it later. Like, and then like, I'm a big believer, like every day that we do or get a chance to in practice, usually it's 3 to 4 times a week, we play a 2-minute game instead of just practicing like, okay, we're down 2 with 10 seconds. Like, we'll play a 2-minute game, and who knows what scenario we might see. We might see down 1, we might see down 4 with 30 seconds, we might see up 4 with 30 seconds, whatever. And then our guys have to figure out how to play. And I try not to call timeouts in those 2-minute games. In a game I might, but like in those 2-minute games, it gives them an opportunity to really figure out the situation on their own. And then we'll come together and talk about it afterwards. It's usually the last thing we do in practice every day.
So like one of the little ones that I've picked up on that a lot of coaches think is weird or whatever, but like in the FIBA game, there's a 5-second count all over the court. And it's not really a closely guarded rule the same way that it is in federation rules or in NBA rules type deal. It's if I'm within a meter or 3 feet of you, then the 5-second count begins. And if you dribble, then it goes away. But as soon as you kill your dribble again, it starts up type deal. So in any sort of shared ball scenario, especially if it's towards the end of a quarter, I'll teach my guys, don't wrap them up. So like if a guy dives on the ball and he's stuck there on the floor, I'll be like, just go stand next to him. And we get a 5-second count. And a lot of guys, like that way you don't lose the arrow, right? Especially if you're like towards the end of the quarter. One of the worst things you could do, in my opinion, is lose your arrow and then you were about to get it back to start the next quarter. So now you got your arrow for 2 seconds or whatever, but like who cares? They get the ball to start the next quarter. You're not doing anything. Whereas if you just stand next to them, you get a 5-second count, so to speak. And it's like, I'll be in the ref's ear, obviously reminding him, because the 5-second count's not the one that is most often called type deal or whatever, but it just makes, don't wrap him up. Just literally stand next to him and he's closely guarded and we get the ball back. And first couple times, like a lot of coaches are like, that's really weird. Why would you do that? And I'm like, because I want the ball. I want more possessions. I don't know what else to say. So we're coming up on time. Want to be respectful of everybody's time. Just a quick overview from from all of you guys' perspective. Sorry, I want to share one more thing, just to kind of harp on refs a little bit, because that happens a little bit. Ultimately ends up basically being a 1-possession game. I just want to say that is not a charge, in my opinion. I just want to say that there are a lot of offensive fouls in there, but that's one of the ones. That's a whole different discussion for a different day, but we'll talk about refs, etc. And there was one other one too that went the other way, so it balanced out, but I found that one quickly type deal. But keys of the game, in you guys' opinion, if you're Winthrop, going forward, what are the keys of the game to be able to beat Radford again for a rematch, hypothetically?
Protect the rim.
Protect the rim is a big one, Jimmy. Anybody got anything else? I would
do a
probably
good job on Fields for
pardon
me.
me.
I think they got to do a good job on Fields for me, more than the other guy.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously in the second game, they got down a lot, and part of that is shooting, but I think part of that was just like the hunger that they demonstrated in, say, the last 12, 13 minutes is not the hunger that they started the second half with. So obviously have the motivation. You were supposed to be protecting your home court, so come out with that drive in the next game. These guys, Radford wanted the game more a little bit, so that's a bit of a motivational thing. But I think in terms of offensive and defensive stuff, go through some end of game stuff. Obviously, like get the scenarios right. Work on making your layups at the rim and not contesting 6'7" guys when you're 5'9". And beyond that, I think I would change that ball screen coverage to be able to keep my big in the game longer. So those were the key points for me. I'm going to wrap this up just by quickly saying thank you, gentlemen, for joining. I appreciate you guys taking the time to contribute. Next week, we're going to take a look at Illinois versus Michigan State, which will be the last of the weeks that I do sort of like big schools. I'm going to get into either some small college or some G League stuff after that. I say that with a little tone in my voice, just, somebody, a little fly on the wall. But I want to try and challenge us to go through maybe some players that we're not as familiar with. I'm also going to get away from teams that have played each other twice and go to teams that have only played each other once, so that there's a little bit less of a sample size, so that you guys can sort of see like what adjustments would you make. And then the last point I want to touch on, obviously, is a big thanks to the Rising Coaches Network for connecting me with like-minded individuals and for helping me to pursue this creative endeavor. And obviously, if you're not on it, I highly recommend that you do get on it, because I'm less of a draw than some of the other gentlemen, but some of the content that is on there, if not all of the content that is on there, is first rate, top notch. And if you guys like a more interactive setting as a coach where you want to learn, this is the way to go. So I'm going to be respectful of everybody's time. Thanks again, gentlemen. I'm going to stop the recording here. Appreciate you all.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, guys.